Hey everyone, it's Brad and Josh here, and we welcome you to We'll Bring the Popcorn, the ultimate film and TV podcast.
Today we're going to be reviewing the new blockbuster film, Avatar: Fire and Ash.
Avatar: Fire and Ash picks up a short time after The Way of Water. We have Jake and his family dealing with the loss of their oldest son, and just exactly how they're dealing with that. They're still in the time of mourning, but Jake is also prepping. You know, it's kind of a war and a battle is coming with the Sky People still, that it's not over with yet. And there's a lot of drama that surrounds that because Neytiri is not dealing with things in the same way that Jake is. You know, Jake's the military guy. He's just kind of going straight forward. We have a new mission. We got to go. You know, we have Neytiri is very heartbroken and mourning, and she doesn't know kind of what to do with herself. But we also have a lot of this film revolves around Spider and exactly what to do with him because, you know, he's living with the water people now, but he has to wear that mask 24 hours and he starts running low. So the biggest crux of the movie begins because they decide that they're going to return Spider back to the group that's hiding out in the floating mountains and everything else. And as always, not everything goes as planned.
Yeah, I mean, we pick up right at that point. You know, we have the very real setup of, you know, Spider's inability to breathe with the air. You have him basically running out of oxygen in one of his masks right out the gate, and kind of the crux behind, you know, him and his inability to survive on the planet without it. And that plays out in a really fun way throughout the film. I think that they do a pretty cool job of kind of resolving that issue in a way that I thought was pretty neat and one of the cooler things of the film. I do want to say before we get like too far into the film that we actually did watch this film in the 3D motion seats. Mm-hmm. And that's my first time trying it, and I gotta say, I had a fun time just enjoying the dips and the dives and the movement of the seats. I had that thing cranked all the way up because
there's one point experience. He put his hands up like he was on a roller coaster.
I did, and it was fun, just because it was a fun flying scene, and it felt appropriate. I don't care. I'm an adult. I'll do what I want. But it was a lot of fun, and I think that helped really enhance the film. Mm-hmm. I think, in my opinion, for me, because it doesn't overdo it either. Like it goes in and kicks into gear when like there's flying and there's fights and you get the rumbles and the tilts and all of that. But then like when there's nothing going on, you're still kind of sitting still and kind of taking in the scenes. So I think they did a really good job of like syncing that up to the movie, I think. And it was a lot of fun. And I think it helped enhance my enjoyment of the film a little bit. But as like the meat of the story here, you have, you know, we'll go into some lighter spoilery type of stuff. So if you don't want to know anything about the film, come to us at the end and see our final grading of the film. But, you know, you have the whole Spider inability to breathe. You've got Neytiri, who's gone in a very spiritual direction here with how she's trying to process everything. And there's a very real conflict with Neytiri and Spider in this movie because he is a sky person, that she kind of sees him and as this representative of those types of people, and is kind of becomes the target of her anger towards the Sky People after the death of her first kid, because she very much blames them, you know, for killing her son in the last film, and that he's kind of the embodiment of that anger for her, and she's very much trying to push him away. And there's some real interesting dynamic there with their relationship that kind of plays out through the film, where she's very resentful of him even being around at this point, while very much conveniently forgetting that she's married to kind of.
Jake calls her out, like, what about me? Yeah. I'm still human. What about your kids who were kind of part all that? Like, what do you feel about us?
Yeah, it does kind of point to a little bit to hypocrisy, like, look at me, look at your kids. Like, if you hate him, you hate us, kind of thing. And it does kind of play out. And then you have, you know, the Sky People who are still on the hunt for not only Spider, but Jake as well. Like, they're the two that they're very aggressively coming after. I gotta say, storyline or not, one thing Avatar does so incredibly well, and they do it just as well, if not better, in this film, are the visuals. You know, the cinematography, the visuals are on point to a T and done so beautifully and incredibly well. The set pieces that they have for this are gorgeous. Like, you're not getting any lack of that at all whatsoever. And I gotta say, as not being the biggest fan of 3D to begin with, This was probably the best 3D version of a film I think I've seen, just from a 3D perspective, where it's not really beating you over the head with anything. It seems like all of the 3D was done meticulously and with care to kind of help you feel a little more immersed without beating you over the head with constantly throwing things at you. Like it felt more like a proper 3-dimensional film than anything I can remember have seen before it in the ones that at least we've gone and seen.
Yeah, the Avatar films have been at the forefront of making 3D less of a gimmick and more of an enhancer to the film. And as you said, with the Cinemark D-box seats that we were in, having the motion and the movement and the rumble and stuff with it, that paired with the well-done 3D really made for a fun, engrossing experience in that. Because, as you said, the 3D is done really well to make things pop, especially like when you get the more bioluminescent scenes and you've got the things floating around and flowers opening up and popping out, or even just like computer screens and seeing the text and the maps that are kind of 3D projected in the room, just seeing all that come alive in 3D. Avatar has been one of the big ones that really have done 3D right.
Correct.
And you almost didn't have much of a choice when it came to Avatar, because most of the showings that we've seen was all 3D, but it's done well. That it's because it can be problems for people with glasses and other things that you may not get the full experience, but also some people, it's a 3 hour and 15-minute movie. Like trying to sit in 3D for that long can be hard on the eyes and the brain and everything else with doing the 3D. But even James Cameron said, like, I know that they're long movies. He even went to like scientists to see exactly how he should do the 3D in this movie to make sure it didn't make anybody feel nauseous or have any problems with the 3D in it, which, as you said, the 3D in the end really helped enhance it a lot. And yeah, there really right now there is nobody who does visual effects like Avatar has. Like, I don't have the official number, but I'd say 90% to 95% of these films are CGI. Yeah. They're visual effects, but they look so incredibly stunning, from how the water moves and everything else, but to making these characters feel real. And that's the biggest positive I have with these films, is that they are breathtaking to look at. Not only from just how good the visual effects and the CGI is, but the cinematography that they do with it, the color palette and the brightness, and like I said, the bioluminescence that comes through to give an extra glow around scenes. But you have, part of the film also deals with the Tolkien, the whale-like alien creatures are coming for their kind of annual migration to this area, and you have this magnetic twirl of energy that's happening around here, and just that contrast between that kind of twirling tornado, like with the bright teals and blues and everything, with the surrounding water and land and everything. It was visually breathtaking to watch.
Yeah, everything pops in this film, and that's one of the things I get the most credit for. You can kind of, with these films, always kind of nitpick the actual story that's happening. I think they do a good job here of keeping it like family centered while also talking about the overall lore of the planet, really, because as you go further along, you learn a little bit more about Pandora and everything and what's going on here. And this movie definitely centers all around the water people and their conflict with the fire tribe, and they're raiders, I think is what
they refer to them as raiders. Yeah, the ash people. They live beneath the volcano. Mm-hmm. It's the first time that we're really seeing the Na'vi as something other than the protectors of the planet, the peaceful people, because between Natiri's tribe and with the water tribe and everything, they're all spiritual and about balance with nature and the planet and everything around it. And the ash people are very much about killing and taking, and like most atheists are against Awa. They don't believe the goddess has anything because they feel the goddess has abandoned her. So we get a much darker, different look at this other tribe of the Na'vi.
Yeah, and I think that was needed for this film, because you need that contrast too, because it can't just be all sunshine, rainbows, and adventure here. Like, you have a very real threat with these raiders and the very real danger that they present, and then you get, like, to kind of spoil it a little bit, you get them teaming up with the Sky People in a way here to kind of really have their missions kind of line up directly too, and have them try to capture Jake and Spider in this film. And it's fun, man. I gotta admit, like it's a long movie. Make no mistake about it. These are very long films. At times they do feel long, but I didn't have as much of that in this film as I did in, say, the last film. The last film definitely felt like it drug on longer than it needed to. I didn't really have that same sense of like, okay, can we really move this forward? Because I think they kept the pacing in this one fairly well. Like, it took a breath when it needed to. It cranked up the action and the violence on it when it needed to. Like, it was a pretty well balanced movie. I think that was done in a way better than the previous one, because it felt like it's never overstayed its welcome in any scene, and it never lulled too much. Like, it lulled when it needed to kind of let you catch your breath a little bit, do a little story exploration kind of thing, get the character growth and development that was needed in this film for some of these characters, and you kind of help prepare the story forward. I can very clearly see that they're going to make a fourth film, at least, if not go for all five like it was originally thought. I know it's been kind of up in the air, but at least the way they told the story,
it definitely
didn't feel like it wasn't ending there, especially with how it ends. So I think we are coming back to this at some point. Now, how long is it going to take to make Avatar 4? Who knows? It could be 2030, and these guys are all in their 60s.
Well, it's currently Avatar 4 is currently scheduled for 2029, so there's 4 years from now.
That's a long time to get to this, and I get it. Like, we get an absolute visual gorgeous film out of it, but I wish they could find a way to dial that in a little bit longer, because it feels like we're going to some kind of epic conclusion here where something's got to give, because you have, Colonel Quaritch here, like, as like the main antagonist, but he's kind of toying with maybe potentially going on the side of the Na'vi a little bit here, where they have a little bit of fun playfulness back and forth with, Jake and Quaritch here, that you almost feel like Jake is going to be able to get him to turn eventually, and it's a fun dynamic that they're playing with, and we'll see how they follow up with that in the fourth one. But it goes on a fun journey. I had a good time watching this. Like I said, it's a long movie, but it didn't really ever felt like it overstayed anywhere or drug longer than it needed to.
See, I enjoyed the film, but I do have quite a few problems with the story and how things were done. And the biggest one I'll start with is Quaritch. And it's a spoiler, of course, you have to know going into this. At the end of The Way of the Water, it looked like he was fully dead, and he somehow miraculously survived everything in that. And that was a problem for me at the end of Way of Water. And his plot armor just grew to like Megazord level in this one. Like, it was ridiculous, the plot armor he has. Mm-hmm. But he still kind of felt really one note. It's like, we know in the first Avatar, his human form was killed, and that kind of set that up to something interesting to go into the second one, that you have, all right, well, they still have his memories and everything else, and they can put it into an avatar, and you can go from there. And we had that journey through The Way of Water of Quaritch still kind of being that general who's after him. And I feel like this one, he was a little more flatter. Like, you do have that, okay, Jake is really trying to get him to open his eyes about the Na'vi and how the sky people are wrong, and that you're no longer a sky person. Like, you're an avatar, you're a Na'vi, you're part of this world and planet, but you just don't really want to look and see what's going on. But I don't think they went like enough with that type of side, because he felt like he was still really one note. He's about Spider and he's about getting Jake, and that's kind of, and he'll disregard everything. But there's also a change towards the very end that almost felt out of character, because we didn't fully get a moment that really made it shine that he's thinking. Like, you get that he has a connection with Varang, the leader of the Ash people and stuff. Like, she reminded me of Taylor Momsen a lot. If you've seen any of the Pretty Reckless stuff, like, that felt like Taylor Momsen as a Na'vi. I really loved the Ash people. I wanted more kind of out of them and that conflict and stuff, because I do feel like they came forefront and were really important, but then there came a time, especially when it came to Quaritch, it's just going to become our main guy again, that they kind of went to the back for him.
A little bit, yeah.
But I did have a problem, just Quaritch, just that plot armor is just way too thick with him, and I don't think they did enough with him. Like, there is a little bit evolution, but it feels like we're in the third movie, that we're still kind of seeing that same kind of beat with him. especially at the ending, I'm not going to spoil everything that goes in there. It feels like we're just like, I think going back and looking at it, the biggest problem I have with the story here is that it shares a lot of similar beats to The Way of Water.
Sure.
That it doesn't feel like the story and progression of exactly where are we going to end with this? How are we getting to an end of the conflict between the Na'vi and the Sky People and Quaritch? And I feel like we're still kind of left almost in the same spot that we were at the end of Way of Water.
Agree and disagree, I think, a little bit there. No, absolutely not. We're going to have this fight, and we're going to talk. No, I don't completely agree with the fact that there wasn't a whole lot of progression from Quaritch, because if you see, like, Jake kind of planting those seeds in him early, you see him considering what he's saying. Like, he's also like, he may be right, but I'm still focused on my mission, like, it's possible. Like, you see him kind of toying with it throughout the film. Like, I don't agree with all of a sudden he has this kind of semi-epiphany towards the end where he's considering it more. You see that slow build and progression throughout the film, I think. And, yeah, he does tend to fall on some habits there by the end, but I think what's interesting about him as a character, I agree, he's got quite a bit of plot armor on this in these movies, but at the same time, you kind of also made the opposite point for yourself without, I think, you realizing, where he's technically not alive and he never has been. Like you said, you can take those memories and that data from him and implant him into another avatar if you need to. He doesn't technically ever really have to die necessarily, because you can kind of take that and...
But it is the same body. It's the same everything. Like,
sure.
He was underwater for such a long time of the battle and everything else, and he came up and he was fine. That's my biggest problem with The Way of Water. It felt like you were giving an ending in that, and you could have just had the Ash People be the villain of this without Quaritch. I think the biggest thing is, like, what did Quaritch really add to this story other than what he has been through the first two of just someone trying to track down Jake? Like, you could have had all of this conflict go around Jake and the family not knowing what to do with Spider, and then the Water Tribe not knowing how to deal with the Ash People. I don't think you necessarily needed Quaritch to be part of this film. To me, like, I've enjoyed the character, but it does just feel like he's just there to be that thorn in his side. Like, I don't know, there's something about his character that just rubs me wrong of how he's still just the main bad guy, when really they could have moved on to the Ash People and he didn't really need to be that big part of it. You could have had something a little bit more interesting if you just went in just how brutal and dark that the Ash People were and how they treated the other tribes and stuff. I just didn't feel like...
Well, he really kind of serves as a bridge between the two, right? He serves as the bridge between the Sky People and the Ash People, really. Like, he's kind of the one that brings them together, really, in this. And I think, not to project going forward, because normally I hate doing that, but I think his whole story arc is going to eventually be, he's going to make some kind of heroic, like, make right towards this. He's almost kind of like a Darth Vader-esque character in this. Kind of. And I use that term very loosely, in just in the broadest sense of the term, of, like, he's seen as the big bad all of this time, and at the end he's going to do something, because he does kind of make a heroic thing to really help save, like, spoil a little bit, Spider from potentially falling to his death, because obviously Spider is Quaritch's son. And, like, he does make this move to kind of save him and work with Jake for a moment. And you see them kind of toying with, are they going to start working together? Is he really going to side with the Na'vi people here and kind of embrace being that Na'vi, in that Na'vi form, and embracing the people and the planet and the culture? I think he's kind of on the cusp of doing that. And I think he's going to eventually come full circle and help maybe save the day in the end. I don't know if it's
more for me. I wanted to see that happen in this one more than it did. Like,
More than
it's setting up for a fourth one, but, like, hey, you're 12 hours into this story and you still haven't, like, you're playing with pushing him somewhere, but he just, I guess it's more he still feels that same one-dimensional as he did in The Way of Water. Like, between the progress, because you got him finding out about Spider and wanting that towards the end of The Way of Water, and that's kind of his main motivation through here is keeping Spider and stuff. But it's very light progression. I would have liked to see a little bit more if you're keeping him alive to be something bigger for this. And it's also more of the plot armor stuff that annoyed me, because there's so many times in this movie that they have Varang and they have Quaritch dead to rights, and they never like go for it. Like, this guy has killed so many, he has caused so many problems and so many headaches, but they just continue to like. I think the biggest thing is a plot armor around him that just annoys me, because I don't see exactly, like, I get the progression is maybe he's going to flip and there's going to be something in there, but it hasn't made me care that he's going to do that.
And that's fair. I think they did do the Ash people a little bit of a disservice in this, because you started on the cusp of, you could have dove into their backstory a little bit more than they did. And I love like the cool voodoo-esque kind of, nature of Varang in this film too. Like, she's a really cool character in this movie. I think is one of the
she's like controlling people with connecting to
one of the real standouts in this, and it's a lot of fun. But like I said, at times it does feel like they're taking their time with things, but at the same time, it does move forward. It does move forward in this for sure. Like, you are moving towards what do you think this epic conclusion is going to be? Is it going to be in a fourth film? Is it going to be in a fifth film? Like, who knows how much of it they try to condense down to fit into 4 movies or 5? We don't know. Like, it does very much feel like we're getting at least a fourth film based on how this film wraps up, but I don't know. I don't know where they go from here to kind of bring this to a conclusion, but it feels like we're getting there and we're getting closer, which feels weird to say after 9-10 hours worth of film that we've gotten so far, really, out of 3 movies. But I don't know, man. I enjoyed it. It's moving along fine. I don't think it's moving as rapid pace, because I think they know they can take their time with it. And in some ways, I appreciate that, because you kind of do get to dive into the world. You get to dive into the spirituality of the people that live on the planet and their connection to Awa. And I really think who had kind of a fun story was, the oldest daughter here, who is still struggling to find her connection to Awa and her place and everything. And she goes through quite a bit of an awakening and an understanding in this movie that I think is really one of the stronger progression arcs in this film, that was done really cool in a really fun way to see how she finds her connection to the planet and her place in it, because I think that's a really cool story.
It is, but there's also, like I said, I definitely already know I'm being much more critical on the plot than you are with stuff, but it feels like we start off right away with the oldest brother, or the second brother, the only living brother now, kind of having a walk within Awa and stuff, that he's, spending time with his brother, and he's talking about, like, if it wasn't for me disregarding orders and stuff, you would still be alive. But the rest of the film is him disregarding orders. I know he's a young kid and he's trying to make what he feels is the right decisions, but he is just constantly abandoning his sisters. Like, the youngest one is always left alone by herself the entire, we got a giant war going on, you stay right here out in the open, right in the middle. That, as a dad, it's like, boy, you're going to get that. Like, come on. Like, I just felt like the kids, I want a little bit more out of the kids. Like, you get a little bit more out of the brother's journey. Kiri gets it more towards the end, which was very interesting with what they did there and how they progress, especially because you get a very interesting walk that she does to Awa. Like, Awa's pushing her away, but you get that kind of joint walk towards the end. That was really cool. But I just feel like this one, like, I'm nitpicking big time on the plot and the story, because it didn't feel like it progressed to me as much as it did to you when it comes to story. It feels like, we started off with the water people. We got an introduction to the wind people, who were traders that go around. That was really cool, visual looking and stuff. And they were in the film for a very small amount of time. Now, it makes kind of sense why they were in there for a small amount of time. But then it just kind of revolves back around to being about the water tribe and the whales and the humans hunting the whales and kind of all that. Like, I just feel like there's a missed opportunity to do a little bit more with the plot and the story. And here, when we're 3 films in, we're 30-something years into these films being, made. James Cameron initially started in 1994. It didn't start filming till 2007 and stuff, and got the first one in 2009. But it feels like this far apart that they could have done a little bit more, because I really like the Ash people, but as we mentioned, like, they take a backseat to Quaritch and what his stuff is, and we've kind of, it just feels like we've got the same story between those Jake in Quaritch for 3 films now that I didn't feel that there was enough progress for him towards that. And I do want a little bit more out of the kids because, again, you got to see Tuckby a little bit towards the end on something, but it was just like, let's just abandon and leave the kids behind every single time with all these battles going on. So I will say the last final battle was pretty epic and huge, but it was also very similar in a way to the Way of Water battle. I mean, we're ending with a ship battle on the ocean in both of the films. Like there's similar beats. I think if you really go back and we look at watch Way of Water and then watch Fire and Ash, you can see that there's more similarities than we probably remember and realize that they could have done a little something more with the plot to get me. Like visually, it had me engrossed the entire movie. Like I was just in love with the visual splendor of this film. But I do think it has some of the weaker plot just because I don't feel like we did. I looked back at where we ended compared to we ended with the other films, and it almost seems like we're ending in the same spot that we did at The Way of Water. Like, where does it go into the 4th film? Well, we still got this and we still have that, and we like, especially when it comes to the Sky People, we get Giovanni Ribisi back and we have a lot of characters back and stuff in there, but they're still exactly the same. They're just concerned about leveling this planet, taking all they can from the animals and stuff. And I don't feel like the resolution between like, okay, are the Na'vi people really going to defeat, or is it the humans, the Sky People who are going to win out? Like, I just feel like there was a lot of stuff that they could have done here that they really had a missed opportunity on to move the story forward. Because after, you said, 10, 11 hours, I kind of feel like we're in the same place.
I can't disagree with you more on this. I really can't. I really can't, because like I think you're not giving it enough credit for the progression that it does make, because you do get progression for the family. You get, the resolution of the conflict between Neytiri and Spider here. You get the progression. You get the family kind of like coming into their own. Loak, while he does spend a good chunk of the film making bad decisions, I really think he does mature and evolve towards the end of the film.
Towards the end, he does.
It takes its time getting there, but I think where they're getting as a launching point for where it's going. Like if this were the final chapter in the story, I would have a stronger feeling more in line with you, I think.
Well, that's what I am kind of going off of too. Like James Cameron and all the cast have said, this really ends as a trilogy. 4 and 5 are kind of their own thing, it's not.
Yeah, it's definitely not. I think they may have. If you take that out of it, I think they misrepresented what they mean by this, because I think there was so much in the air of whether this was going to end it or not. But you could tell by the way they told the story, it's very clearly not a definitive end here, because there's no real resolution, because they haven't completely wiped out the Sky People either. Like there's progression on that too, because. And I want to use this analogy to kind of make my point here. This feels very Star Warsian, wearing with the Santa hat here. You wouldn't make that argument like, oh, we've had two plus films already of the Empire trying to take over the galaxy. Like it's kind of a similar thing where you have the Sky People trying to take over this planet and mine its resources and do these things. It's a much more condensed version because it's limited to one world, really. But you have that same kind of journey that these characters go on as similar to Star Wars. Now, it's easy to say because Star Wars wrapped up in 3 films, and this one very clearly hasn't. But I think it's very similar there, because you do get that progression. You can make the argument Luke has very little character progression from A New Hope to Return of the Jedi, really, until he fully winds up in his final Jedi form that he can, really take on Darth Vader head-to-head if he needed to, but you still also had the Emperor kind of thing around.
I think the difference with that is the original trilogy is about 6 hours. This is 11 hours. You have almost...
You're giving it way more time than it really is, because this is like 9.5 hours total.
Well, so yeah, I mean, it was 3:15 for basically the second
hours.
2, so it's about 6 and about 9 hours.
It's under 10 hours. Yeah. You're adding a couple extra hours there. You're exaggerating, sir, and I'm going to call you on it. But no, I don't disagree in some points, because it doesn't jump. It's not as hard of a jump forward as I think most people would want from a film. But there's character progression throughout all of this. I really do. Especially, like I said, you get the daughter going on her journey of her connection to Awa, and she goes on that journey, and you're dragging along like several different plot elements throughout the course of this film, and every one of them, I think, to its credit, takes a little bit of time to get to the point where you care about their progression as a character. Like you said, Loak does for a lot of this film, but by the end of it, he is maturing and he is becoming that leader that he could eventually grow into be for his people. You have the daughter finding her connection to Awa and her place in it, and learning more about herself and the things she is capable of doing, because her character progression from the previous film is she doesn't have a place here. Like, she doesn't know, because she's not a full-blooded Na'vi. She's half sky person, really. And they dive into that, and you find her progression on this. You get Neytiri going through the grieving points of losing her son, to processing that grief, understanding it, and then also doing what she needs to do to kind of help save her family throughout this too. And she has a fun story. There's so many different characters that are getting progression that they kind of take their time doing it, that I think you're not giving it as much credit as I think you should.
I will have to agree to disagree, because I think there is progress, but it's minimal. Like, especially across 3 films, they said 9 hours and stuff, that I feel like it's minimal to where they could be at this point.
Sure,
like I said, I feel like this is Way of Water with a little bit of fire added into it. Like, it's, if you go back to Way of Water and you compare it to this, you're going to see a lot of the similar beats, or at least I did. But yeah, like I said, visually it's stunning. I love the Ash people. I wanted more of them. I think my biggest problem is the plot armor and everything around Quaritch. Like, I don't feel like that has progressed enough across 3 films, with having him be kind of the Darth Vader. I get the comparison, but I think this is, with how much more time it's taken, that we could be a little bit farther along with Quaritch and his back and forth and stuff on there. And Spider was a little bit, like, I get where he's at, and trying to be like, well, he's got his dad, but he's got Jake, his dad, and he's trying to deal with that. And you get some decent progress in there, but it does also feel Spider's just kind of that just drag along type of character, because they don't fully know exactly what to do with having this other human be a part, almost like a little lost puppy that's just following them around through the whole thing. I just really wanted to see more of the Ash people. As you said, there's that witchcraft kind of element to it, and they're very almost orc-like from Lord of the Rings, like the way they act and look, and they're even, you get like, and people have talked about how this is kind of Pocahontas kind of redone a little bit, and you get a little bit of the Last of Mohicans brought in here, because they're scalping other Na'vi and everything else. But I wanted a little bit more progression with the story. I loved watching it, like, visually stunning. I enjoyed the film, but I am being critical of their story, to me, that I don't feel that it did as much as it really could have. If they're saying this wraps up the first part as a trilogy and then moves on to the 4th and 5th, I have a problem with that, because it really didn't. When we're left at the end, we're left in a pretty devastating place.
Sure.
And we're setting up for a 4th, but if that was it, it's problematic.
Yeah, I think you're allowing certain outside influences to garner this too, and I it's valid, but I don't think it's fair. I really don't, because you're get what the story you're given, and you're thinking of, well, had they done this, and you could very clearly tell they're not doing it. Like, they're setting up a 4th movie at least. So I'm a little more forgiving there, because I know there's more story to tell. Like, if this were the hard cutoff, I would have a very different reaction to this film, only because I know there's more coming.
Well, they say it has to make money for Disney to greenlight another one. Like, we know the first and the second one are the #1 highest grossing film of all time and the 3rd highest grossing film of all time. So there's a lot to live up.
A lot of expectations for sure.
You know, it's a 4 or 5+ $100 million film that they have to make their money back, and it's looking like it's probably going to be about a 300 to 400 million global haul for its opening weekend, which is good. But with a film like this, it needs to, when the other films have made over $2 billion each, this one has to at least probably get to 1.5 for them to feel like it's a good thing. And he's also talked about he's ready to kind of do some other things, so he's leaving that open, like, oh, if it ends here, then I'm fine with that, and I can go on and do some other things. But I don't think I'm giving it too much of that. This was supposed to be kind of an ending. I just feel like story progression, I wanted more, because I am enjoying being in this world and the visual and the splendor, but it's also, Pandora is such a large planet, and we really went to 3 areas in this film, so we kept it really small again. So like we've a gigantic planet, gigantic world, and it's still kind of this really small feeling with how it goes. And the whole stuff with the Tolkien, and like I get exactly what they're doing with the whales and stuff, but that was a very similar beat to what they did with the second one, is that you have the outcast, you have the others that don't want to get involved, but the sky people are just going out there and killing and destroying them, but they don't want to get involved into this fight. And what does it take for these animals and the creatures and the nature of the world to get in there? And they do finally get into that. But it also felt like, all right, we did kind of cover a lot of that in The Way of Water. Did we need to go that deep into kind of that again? But I will say I haven't cheered for a death in a film as much as I did for a death that happens. I'm not going to give away who it is. It's a sky person.
Yeah.
I was, come on, and now watch, because death means a lot, but then it doesn't mean anything. Like the film with the Na'vi and stuff, it does show the connection to death and everything else. But when it comes to people staying dead, it doesn't exactly keep certain characters. So because we thought this character should have perished in the last one, and he was still around here. It was like, come on, let's get to killing this guy already. Come on, let's get it. It's gonna happen. Nope, it didn't happen. Is it gonna happen? Nope, it didn't. Fair. Yes, finally.
That's fair. There are elements, and I'll concede that there are certain elements of this story that have very little progression. I agree. Spider is probably one of the weaker points of the film. You don't really get a ton of progression from him as a character at this point, but I don't necessarily think you need to from him. But the whale stuff, that took up a little bit too much real estate in this film. I would agree with that. Because you don't really get a ton from there. You get like a semi-cool moment with them, and the death that you're talking about was very satisfactory because of things that happened in the film too. That was just like, all right, cool. That was awesome. That was a great moment. Jermaine Clement gets a really cool moment in this film as Dr. Garvin as well. Like he has a fun moment in this film that just made me crack up, and he got some fun play in this movie, and I'm optimistic about where they could potentially go in a fourth one, because I know we've thrown all these hypotheticals around of what they're doing. There's no chance in hell they're not gonna do a fourth movie. I think you're more likely to get a fourth. I'm more cautious about them doing a fifth one than I am a fourth one. Yeah. I think you're almost guaranteed to get a fourth one. Fifth one, maybe not. Now, if we get to a fourth one and we're not ramping up enough moving forward to a conclusion, I'll bash the fourth film for not doing that. But I think my mindset is coming into it knowing they're going to do a fourth one, despite what they've said publicly about it. So I'm a little more forgiving of that than I am other things. But I feel there was a proper amount of progression in there. I did go back and watch Way of Water before we watched this, so I know where you're coming from with that. And there are some arguments made that they could have pushed forward a little bit more than they did, but I still think there was enough progression in this one, because we've seen other films, and I'm looking at a certain video game-based film where there was no character progression that we both really kind of hammered over the head, but I think there was more than enough here from a character perspective from 2 to 3 in this one, for sure. Like, it may not have been a huge leap forward, but there was progression. I mean, I think where you're coming from, not to speak for you, but I think your issue is they didn't move it as much as they could have given the amount of time they had.
Yeah, that's the main point I've been making. Like, we're 3 films in. We're almost, like I said, I've exaggerated the time a little bit, but it's very long. It's close to 10 hours altogether when you put in everything between the 3 films. Is that, that's 4 to 5 films for some other, type of films, and you're only getting 3 here. That I feel like where we ended, there's some interesting stuff they can do in 4. Yeah. But it feels like, what is our overall progression? What is our overall plot? What exactly are we trying to get at for an ending in a story with this? Like, the first film was all about the connection with nature between these people and these alien people and the sky people coming in and doing what humans do and just taking over the land and not really caring who they're hurting and what they're doing. And you've got that connection of prioritizing the kind of spiritualness and the nature with everything compared to what the humans are doing. And you end that one with a feeling that, all right, you've got them stopped for now, but you know that they're not going to be completely done. And the second one, you've got Jake and them on the run. They've gone to the water people, but you have the sky people coming back. They're looking for Jake. They're going after him because they feel like he's going to be the one that causes their colonization of this planet to not be able to work out, and feeling he's a traitor and everything else. And we get what feels like a resolution to that. And this third one, I just feel like between what we did in those two, it really slowed down the overall plot progression, because we get, like I said, Giovanni Ribisi back being just the overall jerk that he is of, I don't care who we have to kill or what we have to do in this. But like, there was no real, okay, why are they still pushing? I know there's billions of dollars here to be had, but how does this really end? And then we got that final battle, which just set up a lot for it. But it does feel like we're still kind of in that waiting period to see exactly like, how is this going to end? What are we really looking for? Is nature and spirituality going to win out, or is it the humans? And through 3 films, like, we should have something that's pushing a little bit more to one side, and I guess we did at the end of this, but it's not exactly the side that you were thinking.
Sure. Yeah, and that's fair. I could see a world where that final battle happens maybe 30 minutes earlier in the film, and then you have what could be the fallout from that. Do they completely eliminate the human threat, and how does spirituality win out all of that, and how does everybody move forward? But you also have the very real, you're talking so much more of how much more of Pandora is there to explore? Because you say it's not a small thing, but they don't. The one thing I'll agree with you on is they don't give you enough of an idea of how much more of this world we have to explore, because you say it's a small portion of it, but it may not be.
Well, at the very end of the film, you kind of zoom out of Pandora and you see just where the conflict was compared to the size of the planet.
Sure.
But you don't know how much of that is inhabited and how many other tribes we have and stuff. But yeah, it was just, I wanted more out of the fire people with this. Like, I wanted that to be the bigger central conflict than still being about Quaritch. Yeah. I wanted it to be about, because I really enjoyed what they were doing with the Ash people. They were more just like this tribe that has never seen the sky people. Like, they kind of know, but they don't really know what's going on. And they're just out and attacking brutally, like I said, less than Mohicans type, and going in that. But then at a certain point, it just kind of cuts off their progression just so they can continue Quaritch. Yeah. And it's like, no, I would have rather had, I think that's my biggest problem. I would have rather had the Ash people than continuing that with Quaritch, because I didn't feel that Quaritch gets progression, but it's so minor compared to what you could do with these Ash people that they could have, it could have been a lot more interesting to see, well, keep the conflict between the Ash people and the Na'vi, and then you could see where the humans kind of come in after that, more than, well, the humans, again, were the deciding factor in how everything played out in this one, which they're supposed to be. I just wanted more Ash people.
Yeah, and I think in this, for this film specifically, they use Quaritch as that bridge, right? Because you still have the very real threat of the Sky People, but now you've introduced this other tribe who gets a little more access to Sky, weapons and other things, and more modernized weapons, and you get that. And I think what you could potentially see in a 4th film is less of a threat from the people that they've helped, stop in the 3rd film here. You still have Quaritch running around, which, for the love of God, if you do get a 4th film, let's, what, or get off the pot, kind of thing with him. I will agree with that. Going into a 4th film, you have to have some kind of resolution there for him, but dive more into the fire people and have them be more of it, because that's not all that they brought to the table. They didn't bring I don't think they brought their best here. And are there other tribal elements that you need to explore for this? And that's why I think going into the 4th film, it makes sense to do that. But you could have more from them moving forward now if you're doing a 4th one. And I think the potential is there for it. It is kind of taking its time a little bit, and it could have brought that forward a little bit more had they felt they had that sense of urgency, but I'm still not buying the sense of urgency that they said they had to wrap up this 3rd film. I'm not buying that at all.
Like I said, we have all the elements represented now because we've had the Earth Navi, which is, the tree people, which is Nateri's people. You have the water tribe, you had the wind tribe and traders, which they could definitely do a whole lot more with that world because we don't know exactly, is their whole entire community air-based, or are they, do they have a home base? Because they were kind of taking and mentioning where they could go with things with that, and the Ash people was this all. It's like, is she just one tribe of the Ash people, and are there more, or was that it? Because it kind of ends, and again, I'm trying not to go spoiler with it, you don't really know where it ends with the fire people at the end of this, because it hard focuses on Quaritch at the end, that the fire people just kind of disappear. You don't really know exactly, where they are and what happened with them. Like, I'll give the battle sequences and the visuals an incredible amount of praise because they were just so incredibly gorgeous to look at, visually absolutely stunning. But yeah, I personally do have a lot more problems with the plot than you did, and there's nothing wrong with that. We all have our own opinions on stuff, but I do have a little bit more issues with the plot and the progression of the plot that they've done with this. And I do hope we at least get a fourth in that, but we got to start scaling back that plot armor in a lot of these characters, because you don't really ever feel a sense of dread or a sense of
like they're in danger
for a lot of characters, because that plot armor is so thick.
Well, sure, yeah, and some of these central characters, if they're telling this entire story, aren't going to, like, it's the whole, like, James Bond situation. Like, he's going to look in what's an impossible situation, but he's going to get out of it, kind of thing. Like, I get that. And then, yeah, with Quaritch, you could tell he's going to stick around. Like, it just is what it is with him. He's like a cockroach. You can't get rid of him. But is he going to be a good cockroach or a bad cockroach?
And his one-liners in this film, like, they were funny, but they also felt a little, like, just out of place with his humor sometimes, a little bit. But it was fun. But, like, he just had so many, like, zingers and one-liners.
Yeah, they tried some of that. They tried a little too over the top with it, but it was still fun. Dialogue, I didn't have too many issues with the dialogue in this movie. His was sometimes it was just a little, okay, we get it. You're the one-liner guy, but like,
and you kind of feel they are poking fun at themselves, like, oh yeah, Quaritch is just kind of like, do whatever, he's going to survive. He almost does become cartoonish.
A little bit. I will give you that. But yeah, it's fun. I had a blast watching this. Like, you go into these sometimes, you're just like 3 hours and 15 minutes. I was like, God, if this is a bad movie, this is going to be the longest day of my life. And it wasn't a bad film at the end of the day. I don't think. Like, it's not. Is it the best film I've seen this year? No, but it's still a really good time at the box office. You get the unbelievable visuals. You get. Just go on a journey and lose yourself in the world, and I think it does it well enough to where you're in the movies for a long time, but I don't feel like I was at any point like, all right, come on, we got to wrap this up. I'm kind of over it at any point, which is a hard thing to do in a 3+ hour movie, because you're just like, all right, come on, where are we going? I never really felt that watching this, but maybe it was helped by the fact that we were in the D-box seats and moving around and kind of anticipating what was coming from that too. I think that probably significantly helped for this film, because I think if we were just sitting in regular seats, maybe I would have felt that way at some point.
It made an experience.
It made it an
3D
experience
with
for
the
sure.
motion seat. And
yeah, and if you get a chance, if you haven't seen the film yet, and you have that option to see it, I personally think it's worth spending a little bit more money for that seat and just having that experience, really enjoying it, because I really think it helped. I really do. I think it helped enhance my enjoyment for the experience, and maybe bumped it up maybe a half a point more than what I would have given it, which worth it in my opinion.
Yeah. So Avatar: Fire and Ash, it is a visually stunning film. It's just beautiful to look at. The second to none when it comes to visual effects in this, the color palettes, the just framing of each scene. It was really beautiful to look at. I had a lot of problems with a lot of the plot points and progression stuff, feeling like for how far we are and deep into the story, that a lot of the stuff was too minimal for me, and the plot armor was just super thick, especially on villains and stuff. I enjoyed it overall, even though I've been very critical of the plot and stuff. It is still something that I want to watch again, that I would go to theaters to watch again, even with it being 3 hours and 50 minutes, because of that visual splendor and that epicness of it. I'm going to give it a 7.5 simply because of the plot issues I have. To me, it felt like it had too many beats of The Way of Water, and that the plot progression for a lot of characters and the overall story, I think it's the biggest, is the overall story. After 3 films, I'm left with like, all right, where exactly are we going with this? So I'm going with a 7.5. Like, it's still a good film, one that I enjoyed to watch, but I do have issues with the story progression.
Sure, and I'm giving it an 8.5. I'm surprised we're a little bit more. I thought you were going to go a little lower. If I'm not going
to, the visual splendor and the epicness of this film, like this is a theatrical film. This is a film to go to the theaters with the big sound. And as you said, if you have the chance to watch it in either 40X or the D box or your motion seats, 40 adds in like water spraying and air spraying, which we don't really have one of those around here. But with the 3D compared with the motion seats and the visual splendor, I had a really fun time with it. It wasn't until after I left the theater and I really started thinking about the plot points and the progression and the character arcs and everything like that. That's where it started losing points afterwards.
Sure, and I'm landing on an 8.5 for it. This is a film that is really the embodiment of a full theater going movie experience for me. Yes, there's a little bit of slow build in some of the plot points, like you said. I feel like the character progression is just fine in this movie. It's not a total rehash of The Way of Water, in my opinion. There are certain similar pacing that you have from it, but I still think it does enough with the character progression that it really keeps you invested in the story. It gets bonus points for me, like I said, from the amazing visuals. You get that full theater going experience from this, and it just really helps show what those types of films can be when they're done right in this. The integration of 3D into this that doesn't overtake anything and it's not distracting. I think that's very important when it comes to making a film like this, where you can lose a little bit of that with the 3D, that it's not a distraction. It really does help enhance the story for me, in my opinion. And you get that fine character progression. I'm looking forward to Avatar 4 because I know it's going to happen. You can act like it may or may not happen. Unless this film absolutely tanks, which I don't think it will, you're going to see a 4th one of this. Now, I will be probably more critical of it by the time we get to the 4th film, but this is more than worth an 8.5 out of 10 for me. Like I said, it's not a perfect movie. It does have some of its minor issues. I think you're focusing more on like the overall plot, where I kind of broke down the nuance of character progression and I put a little more emphasis on that. I think there was a fair bit amount of that they go on this journey in this story. And for that, I give it just a little bit higher, but man, what a fun experience that was. And obviously bonus points for the motion seats and really helping feel like you're a part of the movie. Like that was for my first foray into that. We kind of talked about afterwards, you and I, just to kind of peel back the curtain a little bit when we were walking out. I was like, that's not going to be something I want to do for every film.
Oh yeah,
but for a big like action adventure film like that, perfect use of those seats. And will be the only time I get it will be for a movie like that. I could see us potentially doing that for like an Avengers type film maybe, or something like a big over the top action film. 99% of the time I'm not going to sit in those seats, but for something like that, I think can help enhance it for sure. It was just a fun time at the theater. Fun relative when you're talking about a 3-hour and 15-minute movie, but it really helped enhance my enjoyment of the film overall. And I think helped make that, I think my experience in the theater maybe bumped it up maybe a half point higher than what I would have given it without it. So I think we may be a little more closer aligned because of that.
Well, I think mine also got bumped up a little bit from having the 3D and the motion seats because it was kind of similar to what I did with Tron Ares, is that it got extra points because of the immersion that the 3D and the motion seats gave to the film, made me enjoy my experience a little bit more than maybe if I was just sitting in a standard seat. And again, these are not seats. They are more expensive to do. Yeah. It's not for every film.
Sure.
If you went to see a horror film in this, you're not going to get a whole lot out of it. We went and saw, with me and my family, we saw Bad Guys 2 with it because, like, you know what? We'll try it out and see what it's like on something that it has some action into it, but that just felt weak and just not worth it for a film like that. But like Tron Ares and Avatar Fire and Ash was well worth the price because it makes you feel like those Universal, I mean, Disney has some of them too, but Universal's bigger known for those 3D screen rides where it's moving you around a track more than actually doing a roller coaster, moving around your seat more. It kind of feels like that type of experience. You're in that motion kind of roller coaster type of feel when you're flying through the air and you're dipping side to side and up and down, and then like an attack happens and it jolts you and everything else. Like, my biggest problem with those seats is I had to keep turning it back up. Like, it started out of like 2 or 3 out of 4. And then the movie started and I looked down, I was back at the 3, and I had to take it back up to 4. And then a little later in the movie, I was back down to 3. Like, I haven't touched this button. Stop taking down my enjoyment of my roller coaster here. But yeah, for me, it definitely enhanced that. Like, I was very critical on the plot. But I am looking at it as its own standalone movie.
Sure.
But also it's a third in a trilogy that has been going on for a very long time now. And this journey that we've been going on, I wanted to see a little bit more progression. And it's hard when you do have something that's planned as 5 films. That middle is probably going to be stretched out a little bit until they get to that crux point where we're going to twist and turn and they, take that downward road towards that finale and that ending. And they're not quite there yet, but I wanted just a little bit. But there is plenty of progression with characters, but I feel like a lot of them should be a little bit different than they are right now. But a lot of it is that plot armor that just annoys me. That you get it in every film, every action film, every sci-fi, everything like that has plot armor for villains and heroes and everything else. But like I said, this is Mechagodzilla type of plot armor that you're dealing with. Like, Quaritch just has, and I'm talking about Quaritch with all of that plot armor. It's ridiculous the amount of plot armor he has on that saves him from every single situation, no matter what.
You have the unkillable hero. This is the unkillable anti-hero.
I have a feeling the entire theater is going to cheer when we finally get confirmation that it's just done. Like, you killed him off in the first film, but he's still here.
It's still lingering, Come
on.
He's the Michael Myers of the Avatar universe. You just can't quite kill him. He always seems to find his way back to you, right? But no, it's a ton of fun. We had a lot of fun watching this. Avatar Fire and Ash is in theaters now. For the love of God, go see this in the theater for the visual experience alone. This is an absolutely gorgeous visual spectacle. This is what big-time box office movie, go see it in the movie theater type thing is about. It's films like this. This is kind of the pinnacle for visual spectacle. You can have differing opinions for sure on like plot progression and character progression, but for the visual feats alone, this is worth spending your time at the theaters to go see. Like, this is 100% one that put your money down for it. Go check it out in theaters. It's amazing. I'm really just as equally excited to watch it at home too, for like my surround sound system, my home theater setup that I have in here. I'm gonna watch it again here and just kind of lose myself in that world here too when it comes on streaming, because it's just such a fun journey to go on. Like, it's gonna
put your wireless sub underneath your seat.
Absolutely, so give me that D-Box experience again. Like, I'm gonna move it closer to me for that for sure. But definitely one. Come to our YouTube comments. Come to our social medias. Let us know what you thought about the film. Are you Team Brad? Are you Team Josh on the character progression on this? Let us know in the comments for sure. But it was definitely one that we both, at the end of the day, still had a great time watching and taking in the spectacle that was Avatar.
Yeah, and I know a lot of times I can be a lot more critical on plot on stuff than you can be on things, but it's also part of my brain and being a writer and everything else that I'm really just picking apart all the points and everything like that. And like I said, I didn't really start picking it apart and nitpicking stuff until well after we had left the theater, and I was thinking about stuff and then going back and looking at Way of Water and the progression and the story beats. Because if you did a summary of both, like, they can be very similar in the beats. I'm not saying they're the same film, but they follow a lot of the same beats that can make it feel like, oh, is it that? But it's just one that I love the visual splendor so much. I want you to blow me away with the story that you're giving me, and it's like right on the cusp, but it still hasn't gotten there to the point of a story that just, I want to go back for the visual splendor of it all. The plot is kind of the least most important thing with them. But at 3 films in, now my brain's starting to looking at that plot under a microscope a little bit more. But it was still, it's an experience for a theater, because even they could watch it at home. Like, my girls have watched Avatar movies, but they didn't want to sit for 3 hours and 15 minutes in a theater. So I'm curious to see what our home viewing experience is going to be compared to the Cinemark XD screen with the D-Box and 3D, because we don't have a 3D TV, as those are so I guess they still make them, but there's that huge push for them years and years and years ago.
We were just like,
but like, yeah, because like even we mentioned in our last episode when we went about the greatest trilogies of all time, and which will be another debate now of where if this is a trilogy, if the fourth and fifth never get made, where exactly do they stand from a plot and a story? But we talked about how Avatar was the forefront of making 3D less of a gimmick, because I go back to like the Spy Kids or other like 3D films in there, and it was just all about throwing things at a screen, and that's your 3D experience. Oh, let's have a shark jump out at the screen. Let's throw a yo-yo or a ball or something. And Avatar has, and it continues to be the forefront of like 3D can really be a solid enhancer for a film, because it just doesn't have to be about throwing stuff at you. It can make the explosions look better, but you're getting the foliage popping out. Like it's giving you that 3D depth to scenes, that you're getting that immersion with it, where you can tell, all right, this is the foreground, this is the middle ground, this is the background. Like you're getting those layers popping so much more. Yeah. And it did it so well.
So well done in this one for sure. I hats off to the visual team on this, man. It for it to take as long as it does to make these films, at the end of the day, when you get them visually, no notes, zero notes. Incredible job. Shout out to the hardworking team on the VFX team for that, because my God, they were incredible on this.
Hey, it's bad VFX stands out.
Sure.
Completely. But when 90% of your movie is VFX, you can be a little more forgiving, but there's not really anything to forgive with this film. Like the textures of the skin and the eyes and the emotion that you're getting from the way that, like how difficult water is to do correctly, of not only making things feel and look wet, but the splashes and the movement and all that. Like they just,
top notch.
It's just, no one has done VFX better in the last 2009? Since 2009 when the first Avatar came out. No one has been able to match the prowess that they've done, and it does continue to get better every single time. Like you could feel visually that Way of Water and Fire and Ash aren't that dramatically different, but you can see that there is progression when it comes to just how skilled. So I wouldn't, not only to James Cameron and what they've done with the motion capture and setting everything up like that, but to those probably hundreds to thousands of VFX artists that have worked on the visuals Avatar films. Just bravo to you all. Like it's stellar work that they've done.
Yeah, incredible. 10 out of 10, no notes. Absolutely incredible.
Now, one movie that I'm going to have to completely shut my brain off for plot is our film for next week, and that's Anaconda. So that's a Paul Rudd, Jack Black comedy film where they're fans of the Anaconda horror films and they want to kind of remake and do their own version of it. But of course, nothing goes right. We're going to be reviewing that and seeing just how ridiculous and over the top. Like, I don't have a whole lot of high hopes for this. I just hope I can turn my brain off to everything and have some really silly, dumb laughs at this film. Like, because that's exactly what it's supposed to be. And I hope it's an enjoyable time, but it's one that I don't really know how to feel about this kind of more slapsticky, dumb comedy, because we haven't had that style of comedy in a while. It was big in the 90s and 2000s, but we haven't had this kind of style of comedy film, and we've got Scary Movie coming back next year and stuff, so we're starting to see a resurgence of that type of comedy film. We'll just see as Jack Black and Paul Rudd enough to really carry that humor in there.
Yeah, we'll see, and it's one that I think, especially given the time of year that it is, obviously you can tell by the hats we're wearing, this is the Christmas episode. This is coming out right around the week of Christmas, so we're excited for, not only the holiday season, but this is going to be a fun one to kind of, the holidays could be difficult for some people, and I think a film like this could be needed to help bring a little bit of light, a little bit of levity for those that may or may not be going through a hard time. And some people just want to go to the movies and turn their brain off and laugh. I hope we're going to get a good film with Anaconda as well, but we also have the highly anticipated, and I know we're both chomping at the bit to catch it, part 2 of the final season of Stranger Things season 5. This is coming up on the big epic finale. We're a little over a week away from the actual finale itself as well, but we get the next 3 episodes that are dropping this week on Netflix on Christmas Day. Excited for that. So we'll be watching part 2 of Stranger Things season 5 and talking about that too.
Yeah, because after this second part, it is just the finale. It's one episode on New Year's Eve, New Year's Day that we get that. So it's the meat of our finale is here in just a few days, and I'm really looking forward to see like where they ended that first part. Incredible. Left a lot of like, okay, we're really hitting the ground running to go into this, so we'll see what this chunk is. I think it's 3 episodes, so we got 3 episodes to set up that finale, and you got to hope that those 3 episodes are going to be able to get us to that point to where the finale is satisfying and entertaining. Because, yeah, this is it. We got 4 more episodes. We get the next 3 dropping on Christmas Day.
What's been so fun about this is all of the discourse and people trying to predict what they think is going to happen. Oh, if this character dies, we're going to be very upset kind of thing. And one of my favorite things that I've seen, at least as far as the discourse goes, is the Duffer Brothers coming out and saying, we've seen so many fan theories of what they think is going to happen, and none of them have been right so far. So I'm kind of either excited or very worried about what's about to happen in these next couple
I have one big theory here. Mm-hmm. Vecna works for Quaritch. He's actually Quaritch.
You're such a jerk. I can't stand you. Did you see where Jamie Campbell Bower showed up at the play for that? That was awesome, and seeing the love that
I forgot that play is still happening because we haven't really had it, leaving where it is and coming to our area and stuff. So it's interesting to see because you've had you got the Harry Potter play that's going on. You've got Tom Felton has gone in that, and you've had other actors show up for that, and to get the Stranger Things actors who can, because that is what a prequel play.
It's a Henry Creel story.
That you have Henry Creel show up was a lot of fun. That he's still like, hey, I'm going to come up and do a one night only to play Henry for the play and stuff, without anybody knowing that he's going to show. Well, of course, the production knows, but the audience doesn't know that he was going to show up, which was just really cool to still have that connection.
A really cool moment. My friend Molly that lives in London did go see the play, and she said it's phenomenal too. So really hoping that production makes its way to the States and we get to see that here. But a really cool moment. So excited for the final few episodes here to finally drop. It feels like we just watched it, but it also feels like forever that we've been kind of sitting and stewing with what happened in part 1, that part 2 can't get here fast enough, and we're excited to check that out and talk about it next week.
Yeah, we want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate this time of year. We hope you just have a fun, relaxing, good time with your friends, your family, your loved ones, whoever you have here. I've got plenty of friends with little Maddie, who's dealing with cancer here at the end of the year, and an old coworker and friend of mine, Ed, was dealing with cancer as well. It's hard for a lot of people during this time of year, and there's still plenty of loss and struggles, but I hope you're able to find kind of that spirit and the love and the warmth and be able to have a good time. I know at least for me this year has been extremely stressful and all that, and I'm looking forward to spending time with my girls and my family and just having a more relaxing, laid-back time as much as you can with the way the world and everything else is. Just find those moments of just happiness and clarity and just time for yourself during this holiday season, and just hope everyone stays safe and has a enjoyable holiday time.
Yeah, Merry Chrysler to us all.
But that is all we have for you this week. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.
To find all of the episodes of We'll Bring the Popcorn, go to our YouTube page, hit the like and subscription button so you're getting our episodes when they drop each and every Monday. If you're listening to us in the audio room on any of the podcasting platforms that we're on, please don't forget to give us a 5-star review. It really helps elevate the profile of the show. And don't forget to go to We'llBringThePopcorn.com, where it has all of our archive videos, all of our social media information, as well as our merch store, so you continue to support the show in that way. We cannot thank you enough for your continued support.